It's always just between us, all right?
Welcome into Between Us on 9-3 Live. I'm Angela Lim, as always, sharing inspiring stories that matter to you here on Between Us. Today we're talking to two of my guests in the studio. Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and also joined by AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua will share her personal story about how she's looked after her mother who suffers from dementia. And Mohan will share a bit more about the AWWA Centre for Caregivers and how it empowers caregivers and families of the disabled, and a little bit more as well about the other services that AWWA provides as well. Mohan and Jasmine, welcome into the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you guys here because we want to find out a little bit more as well about, caregivers of not just disabled, but anyone with conditions. They're often a very overlooked group. People don't really pay attention to caregivers as much as sufferers of any kind of disease. So Mohan, maybe for a start, you can share a little bit about AWWA, what AWWA is really about, and also the Centre for Caregivers that you're in charge of.
Yes, well, AWWA started off in 1970, and today we run a range of services. So that includes family services, as well as specifically educational services for the people with disability, as well as integration services to integrate people with disability into the mainstream of society. And then we have the elderly services that is in Ang Mo Kio, and that is pretty extensive, where, we have a rehab center. We have also a senior activity center and a community home for the destitute, as well as soon to come, is a dementia daycare center and even a weekend respite service that we will start next year. The Center for Caregivers, though, is a baby on the block, actually. We started off only in about 2006, and this came about, after so many years of working with, providing those kind of services and realizing that the caregivers were neglected in a sense. And realizing that caregivers often forget to take care of themselves. So, the Center for Caregivers focus then was determined as being psychosocial and really focusing not so much on the technical skills of caregiving as opposed to the, psycho-emotional aspects related to caregiving.
We're going to talk a bit more about what those services are specifically and some of the exciting programs that are coming up there. But first, let's get to Jasmine because, Jasmine, you are definitely someone who's been through exactly the challenges that Mohan is talking about. The idea that you had to look after, you are still looking after your mother who suffers from dementia. How long ago was it when she was first diagnosed?
Should be in December 2005, end of year. And that period of time is quite very seriously challenging because at that time it's like, what is dementia with all the things that, and the timing of two of us is totally different because at that time it's like, what is going on? My night become her morning, my morning become her night, and that period of time is really stressful. It's like 2.5 years. 1 week I need sleep for 6 to 8 hours.
Oh,
how are you going
in
to
the
cope
week?
with? Yes.
Oh dear. Okay.
In a week. How are you going to cope with it? And the daytime you still need to work and you have to struggle yourself.
Jasmine, you slept 6 hours a week for 2 years. More than 2
2.5
years. Let's talk a bit about the initial challenges you faced having to care for your mom because at the beginning she would show signs of psychological deterioration.
Because for early part, sometimes she would describe that someone steal her things. And sometimes even very cute things is my food inside the toilet. And sometimes she will like saying that she keep her money inside the wallet. But she insists that somebody steal her money. So all these simple things to other people may be very easy one, just tell her off. But you can't tell a dementia patient that, it's your fault. It's you are the one who put inside the toilet. You are the one who keep your own things. They will trigger their emotional. And you will have another problem is how are you going to get to let them understand that, you are facing all this problem. You are doing all this. But they don't understand you.
Right.
Especially for dementia patients and all the things. For me, early part, I have to read her body language. And I have to deep in and understand about my body language to her also. If our body language, our voices of our tone is too high, she will trigger like, do you like me or not? is it that I'm doing something wrong? Or why you shout at me?
They're very sensitive to changes in tone and
you
volume.
can't change her. So sometimes we talk to her after so many years that I've been learning all this. Until end of this year will be 9 years. So now it's like,
Now you're a
whenever
pro.
talk to her, it's like laughing around,
Yeah.
tap her, give her a hug. To a dementia patient, a hug, a kiss, a tap is very useful.
That's wonderful information for
Yeah.
many of our listeners now who might be caring for someone who's suffering from
Yes.
dementia. But let's talk also about your personal thoughts and feelings going through this journey. It's been 9 years, as you say. At the beginning, I'm sure it must have been very tough for you because there was not
Yes.
much by way of
Because
support.
it's like, at a period of times, it's very, very few support. And even you want to really understand this diagnosis, even at that period of times, I asked a few GPs and all that. A lot of doctors doesn't know. This name is very easy to call dementia, but deep into the dementia is totally different. Even some doctors say, yes, my book is like that, A to Z, roughly is like that. But how are you going to go through and how am I going to guide you? I can't tell you. So even I went to website, I buy a lot of overseas book, Australia books, or whatever books. Now if my books like lend it to another caregivers, that she's
Sharing the
having it,
information.
sharing it,
right?
all the
Yeah.
info.
That's wonderful.
And beside that, I have to go and look for any friends or whoever that can give me info. Because if I want to know more, I have to only go to the specialist. I have to make appointment, and the appointment is damn long. I only see them for 5-10 minutes or 15 minutes. And the nurses also not free to really cope, because at the time of it is very less people know about dementia.
It felt like, it was quite a lonely period for you. Not only that you felt like there was not a lot of information available, it was a very confusing time for you also because, you had to go play by ear to some extent
Yes.
with your mom's condition. You didn't really know quite how to react and
Yeah.
a lot of trial and error.
After that, I also did volunteer
Okay.
from the dementia center.
We're going to hear a bit more about that in just a bit as well. And also how Jasmine managed, with the help of AWWA, to kind of overcome those initial challenges with giving care to her mom who suffers from dementia. Chatting today with my two guests in the studio, Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua, sharing her personal story caring for her mom who suffers from dementia. Between us, we'll continue in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Reset your relationships in Between Us. Our soulful encounter is always just between us on 938 Live.
Chatting with the Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua, sharing about her personal story, taking care of her mom with dementia. Now, Jasmine, you mentioned earlier at the start you had to do a lot of your own research to find out how to take care of your mom. How did you find out about AWWA and the support that it was giving?
And the first 2.5 years is totally I forgot that I have to take care of myself. It's like I struggle everything. And
Your
all
mom
that.
was your priority.
Yes. Totally. You're out of your mind. It's like everything, she's okay, you are fine. People wake up, the first thing is, I must see the weather forecast, see the computer, look at the computer, look at news or listen to news or whatever, that today how's the weather. For me, I wake up, the first thing is, make sure she's fine. Then I can go to work. So it's one of the coincidence I saw in the Mind Your Body, that there's an article about these courses about psychosocial on all that. So I go and attend. That time it's called CSP.
Caregiver Education and Support Program, it was called.
Okay.
Yes. So I say, okay, I must go for it, because down there is how to handle your distress, emotional, what is the family conflicts, with all the things that, how are you going to cope? Because sometimes you want to talk to your family members, it's like, some of them understand what is dementia, some of them don't understand. How are you going to communicate with them? So I said, go for it. That is where I started with all the things.
All right, we're going to hear a bit more about how you got to know a lot of people in the AWWA community as well, how other caregivers also played a really big part in supporting you psychologically and emotionally. But let's talk a bit about another challenge that I noticed you highlighted, the fact that you had to work. Who was caring for your mom in the daytime, and how did you manage to work around that?
Because I still training I got one helper, just came not too long. So we still training. besides training the helper, I'm still training my mom. My mom is a moderate stage of dementia.
Okay.
But I can tell people very proudly, she's still doing cooking.
Wow, okay.
Because a lot of them, moderate stage is very jialat already. It's like people will say, oh, she can't do anything. But for me, I still let her do cooking. Some of them will say, you very jialat, no, you're very naughty. You ask your mother to go cooking. I said, so that she won't deteriorate so fast. And I can maintain her very well. Because beside medication, we have to do some parts to let them using their brains to slow down their dementia and watch out their diets also another important point of it. So all these things add in together.
I think more than anything, Jasmine, what really is coming across is how resourceful you are in finding out information, because there's so many ways to tackle dementia, and I think everyone has their own idea what's good and what's bad, but you've actually gone out of your way to find out a bit more, engaged yourself in the AWWA community, and we're going to find a bit more from Mohan as well about what that community is really like, what the AWWA Centre for Caregivers really provides in terms of support and services for those who are giving care to not only the disabled, but also people with any conditions or medical conditions such as dementia in the case of Jasmine's mom. We're going to hear a bit more about Jasmine's involvement. She's now volunteering as well, giving back to the AWWA caregiving community. And we're also going to hear about some interesting programs as part of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, the Caregivers Connect, and also the Caregiving Life Skills Training Series. All this information is going to come up in just a bit after the headline news and sports. If you'd like to find out more, stay tuned. Today, chatting with my two guests, Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver, Jasmine Chua, sharing about her personal story, caring for her mom who suffers from dementia. This conversation continues after headline news. Stay tuned.
Man is a knot into which relationships are tied, but nothing comes between us. On 938 Live. It's always just between us, all right?
Thanks for staying tuned to Between Us and 938 Live, chatting today with Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver, Jasmine Chua, who's just been sharing about her personal experience caring for her mom who suffers from dementia. Now, Jasmine, you mentioned that things changed quite a bit once you got to know the people from AWWA. Tell us a bit about how the Caregiver Centre has actually helped you feel a bit less lonely, give you more motivation to keep going.
Because it's the support groups for the caregivers connects. We really help each other to support each other. It's like when you're having a certain problems, even they are not their problems, they'll think of certain ways that how are you going to cope with it. Because if you don't join those support groups, if you talk to your normal friends and they are not a caregivers, I ever talk to my friends, they are not a caregivers, the answer to me is like, oh, very easy method, send your parents to old folks home, solve all the problem. When you are free, your mood is happy, then you go and see them. So as a support groups, our view is differently, you see. Our view is like, oh, how are you going to cope yourself? How are you going to cope with your mother? So that two places you are stable. Because sometimes the care recipients can make you angry until you don't know what to do the time. You're like, oh, I want to go out. I don't dare to go out. If you don't join support groups, you're like, struggle, you're going to bang the wall, you're going to knock the wall, or you're going to bang the table.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating, isn't it? And
Yes.
Mohan, I want you to jump in on this as well, because you said the Centre for Caregivers was actually set up with this in mind, the fact that it can be really frustrating and lonely for many caregivers to do this alone. So what are some of the experiences you've had, working with some of these people who've come forward as well?
Yeah, we organize opportunities for them really to come to a place that I would call a sanctuary, sometimes, and maybe even a watering hole. So they come, and actually you'd be surprised that sometimes the expert in the room may not be the facilitator or the social worker or the professional. The experts are the people who are traveling that journey themselves, and then when they start their sharing, it is so rich and it's so deep, and it speaks to each other's experience. So
What do you think this brings for the caregiver? Apart from knowing that they're not alone, what else do you think it does for them that helps keep them motivated?
Yeah, well, I think the fact that it is an inevitable part of our existence that whether it is our sibling or our spouse our parents or grandparents. We will be going through this, and I think it's about actually embracing the challenge, and also celebrating the joys of caregiving, because it isn't just the burdens. So I think what happens is there is a positivity, and they go back recharged, and ready again, and of course they form their own WhatsApp groups,
we form our WhatsApp groups. We also form what's in the WhatsApp groups. Anybody got problem? Someone will say something, then the others will add on. If they have met the same problems, or they can think of, they will go and search for some tips or some info that have read before, or certain ways, so that they are not alone. That who am I going to look for? So it's very good to join the support groups. It's very important if you are caregivers.
For many of the caregivers who are tuning in now, Jasmine, if you can share what you found are some of the joys of caregiving, because sometimes, after a while, when you're too caught up in caring for the patient and not caring for yourself, you start only seeing the negative aspects of it, and then you start feeling very miserable. What does the group do to make you feel refreshed again and recharged when you go home?
First is I'm not... early parts when I'm a caregiver, I thought, all this problem is I'm the one that I met all this problem. But when you join the support groups, you see so many caregivers, you're like, mine is just a small little flies. To others, maybe, this one is very bad, the care recipients. So they will compare into, I can relax more, so that my mom can be able to sleep, or my dad can be able to sleep. So there is the big difference, because once they knows that you have met 2.5 years and never even sleep for 1 week, only sleep for 6 to 8 hours,
suddenly your problems pale in comparison, right?
Mine, at least my mom can sleep, then she can do all these things. So you can see that different ways of the caregivers. You are like, you learn something from each others. That I can get all these simple tips, bring back home, in case the care recipients, even like my mom or any other care recipients, met the same thing. I can use all this. I remember that. Like the early parts when I first started to be, I even used one tips that I did to her. I go and buy all the multicolored beans, red beans, green beans, whatever beans, all put into a container, and I just white lies to her, saying that, I also forgetful to tell the uncle that I suppose want to cook green beans, but he makes all the beans together. So can we play a games? So I will use different type of multicolors. I learned all this from one of the caregivers also. Give me some tips on it, saying that, because you cannot say, I done the games to the care recipients that is a dementia or whoever, special needs or whoever. They won't do it. You have to play along with them.
And a lot of these things can only be learned through experience. You can't find them in a textbook per se, right?
You can't find in the books and all that.
And speaking of training and skills, that you learn from each other, some tips that you get from the support as well. We're going to hear a little bit more about some of the programs that the Centre for Caregivers in AWWA have actually come up with. Caregivers Connect is one of them. If you want to check it out at this point, it's www.caregiversconnect.sg. We're going to hear a bit more about these and more coming up in just a bit with my two guests today. Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua has been sharing her story.
Reset your relationships in Between Us. Man is a knot into which relationships are tied, but nothing comes between us. On 938 Live.
Director of AWWA Centre for Caregivers, Manmohan Singh, and AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua has been sharing so far about their personal views and also about the Centre for Caregivers at AWWA. Let's talk a little bit about some of the programs. Mohan, I think Jasmine's mentioned quite a bit about some of the support systems that are in place. Tell us about some of the upcoming programs that you're really excited about or have already been in place for a while.
Well, as I mentioned, the psychosocial aspects, we have something called the Caregiving Life Skills Training, which there's a few topics there. One of the important ones is really about good habits of effective caregivers. How do how does one go about planning, being proactive, and so forth. and also navigating the health and social care systems, because I think for some people there is a lot of help out there, but the awareness and knowing where to go and how to use these services, some of them are online also. So we try and, one of our modules is actually just specifically focused on that. The rest of them are really focused on the psycho-emotional aspects, such as communicating, dealing with family conflict, which is quite real and apparent, and in some cases where there's no communication, the single or sole primary caregiver is left to their own devices, with the others, in some sort of oblivion. So what we try and do is to tell these caregivers, you need to initiate, you need to, arrange for a meeting and ask for help. It is not. So I think basically empowering people to really get their voice and organize, so that they have make use of community resources, as well as form a team, and make their caregiving less burdensome, and perhaps to the extent they can, to find the joy in it, if even for the small progress that they might make in any small area.
Right, and speaking of a network caregivers, to share a little bit more about the Caregivers Connect that we were talking about earlier, what is it aimed to do, and who can actually be involved here?
Well, actually, anybody who's a caregiver already can come and join us. We run quarterly activities, and also we have the online interaction. We also have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, where we have some inspiring videos, and especially we also run something else called the Model Caregiver Awards, and we have videos of people who have received these awards, and those are pretty inspiring stories, because sometimes we think we have it bad until you look at others who, for example, last year one of the families that was named the Model Caregiving Family. They have 3 children with disability, and so one child and the 2 parents sort of juggle the caregiving for the 3 siblings.
You might want to check these videos out as well. I mean, so much information all in one place. You can also get, linked up to the network, find out more, and you might even get linked up. There's a mutual help program called Walk With Me as well. You'll be able to find a buddy perhaps to walk with you.
That's a buddy program, yes.
www.caregiversconnect.sg. That's where you can find out more about all these programs as well. And on a final note, I want to get to Jasmine to see if there's anything you'd like to say to other caregivers. It might not be dementia per se, but you've lasted 9 years, and there's still a smile on your face right now, a lot of life coming out of you. What are some of the tips you have for listeners about how to stay motivated while caring or giving care to their loved ones?
To me, my points to them always is they are not alone. We are always there. Is that no need to feel bad, because some of them that I have met in the caregiver journey, they wanted to talk to public or anybody. They are very scared. They are phobia on it. So to us, it's like no need to be afraid of. If you need any help, just come to us. It's very good. Because you may not be able to find anybody, even sometimes you met counselor or social workers, they don't understand you. But when you talk to a caregiver, for you it's easier. They will understand your journey.
And speaking of which, just head on down to this website. As a reminder, caregiversconnect.sg is where you can head to find more information, or you can give the AWWA Centre for Caregivers a call, 6511-53818 during office hours. Thanks so much, my 2 guests in the studio, for coming in today. AWWA Centre for Caregivers Director Manmohan Singh and AWWA beneficiary caregiver Jasmine Chua has been sharing the story. Mohan, Jasmine, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Someone to tell it to is a fundamental human need, and what you say stays between us on 938 Live.